This is The Dead Planet, episode 1 of the Dalek story. And I said last time that this is when the show, I think, really picks up for me. Caveman story is a bit meh, but the Daleks are the Daleks, you know. You're the Daleks. It's the Daleks. Brace yourself. In terms of the elements that get introduced to us in these first episodes, you'd struggle to find anything more iconic to the eventual legacy of the show than what we see in this story. It's almost not worth me introducing this much further, but just in case you didn't realise, this story introduces the Doctor's greatest enemy. No, not the Master, not the Time Lords, not the fandom, the one and only Daleks. I'd seen this episode before, quite some time ago, and I remember finding it really engaging and loved the way it set up the Daleks to evolve into what we know of them today. Without further ado, let's meet everyone's favourite Nazi pepperpot, shall we? Following on from the last episode, the Doctor and the gang step out into a mysterious alien jungle, unaware that the radiation detector is just spite, which, and I'm no scientist, probably ain't good. I remember that about these episodes actually. The ambient sound is so good, it's so alien and like hostile. Right from the start, the story already feels worlds away from the caveman saga. There's such a threatening tone and a tense atmosphere, and even though it's only the second story the show has done, it already feels like something new and frightening.
Ian, where are we?
I don't know.
I would guess Lancashire. During their travels through the totally safe and not harmful alien jungle, they spot a huge city in the distance. The Doctor wants to go and explore, you know how the Doctor is, the oncoming Dora he is to his mates, but everyone else wants to go back to the TARDIS. So they do. On the way, Susan gets separated and feels someone grab her. She gets back to the TARDIS, understandably a little unsettled, but the Doctor just assumes she was mistaken. I'm always curious with these earlier episodes of how much backstory was in place for the Doctor and Susan, and how much was established bit by bit over the show's long run.
You know, sometimes I find the gulf between Susan's age and mine makes it difficult to understand between us.
See what I can do.
Oh, would you? Thank
Alright,
you
Doctor.
very much.
She'll be dead in the Time War soon enough. I'm always in two minds about that, because I always want to know more about the Doctor's family, in terms of, like, were they alive before the Time War? Were they, like, who are they, where are they? And at the same time, it's kind of the point of the show that you don't know anything about them. And I think sometimes when the show wasn't at its best is the time when they over-explain some things and go a bit too much into the Doctor's backstory. I.e. Gallifrey in Hellbent. I was like, I wish we hadn't seen it. The gang take a little break and have a go in the Doctor's food-making machine. What?
Hope mine doesn't taste of engine grease.
Oh, Ian, you shit. What the hell's this been for the rest of the show? Automatic food maker, come on. And then there's a knocking on the door. They've landed on a dead planet flooded with radiation and there's someone knocking at the door. Ooh, that's good. This episode's really good at building like suspense and horror. Like more than it should be able to with the set and the budget they had. But it's really, like, a lot of it is really effective. Ian, Barbara and Susan convince the Doctor to take off, but the TARDIS isn't playing ball. The Doctor says to take off they need to find more mercury for the fluid link. Boy, if I had a nickel. So where's the only place they might find some mercury? The city the Doctor wanted to explore. Convenient, Doctor. They make it down to the city, but everyone's starting to feel a little iffy. The group decide to separate and explore on their own, which leads Barbara to getting lost in a labyrinth of corridors. And it's here we see the strength of the writing and direction, and why the Daleks have become as iconic as they are. We know something is coming. See, obviously it's very dated and like cheap effects, but they build the suspense and the horror of the Daleks so well. Oh yes. Always good. Always good. Always good. I'm watching the next one right now. The Doctor, Susan and Ian work out that they're suffering from radiation poisoning, and so head off to find Barbara so they can cheese out of there as soon as possible. And just their luck, they run into a room full of bloody Daleks. They are silly, they're a silly thing, but they're so iconic, and when they're good, nothing beats them in terms of Doctor Who villain. In my opinion, Parting of the Ways' Bad Wolf was like the best they've been. Another instance of the comparison between classic and modern. The modern Daleks are fairly basic on what they can inflict on people, and I don't know yet whether or not this is a common power for the classic Daleks to have, but Ian tries to run and is paralysed by a Dalek. That as well, when Ian gets shot there and his legs stop working. They need to bring that back. That is so good. Also, after I saw Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and that scene at the end of Darth Vader coming through the hallway, they need to have a scene like that for the Daleks. That's just one of the few things I want to try and do if I ever write for this show. And I will. Not if, when. The gang are locked up and we get to see something that would become a staple of Doctor Who, with the Doctor being brought into an audience with the Daleks. See, this is what we've been waiting for. It's a terrific performance from old Billy Hartnell, and it's difficult not to get a chill down my little fanboy spine as the Doctor meets the Daleks for the first time. And here's all about how they were mutated by a war and retreated inside metal casings. I mean, I could have told you that, Doctor. Read an annual once in a while. The Doctor is sent back to the cell to tell the gang that the drugs they found outside the TARDIS could have been anti-radiation gloves.
It's possible that they may have been anti-radiation gloves. Drugs.
Gloves. So someone has to go and get the anti-radiation drugs.
None of us are ready to go check to go and get them.
Oh, I could do it.
No, it must be me.
Why? None of us can do it. I can do it. No, me. I will do it. Anyway, Susan goes. Naturally, in a big spooky alien jungle, she gets a bit freaked out. I'm sure it'll all go fine, but for now, let's cut away to my favourite shot in 50 years of television. This Let us gingerly touch our plungers. Susan gets back to the TARDIS and finds the drugs and prepares for the return journey, but is she up to it? I fucking wouldn't be. I honestly would not leave the TARDIS again. Fuck him. I'm staying here. Part 3 of the Daleks, Susan exits the TARDIS to find this fellow, identifying himself as a Thal and saying he left the anti-radiation drugs for them, but not taking any credit whatsoever for the anti-radiation gloves. The Thals are close to starving and they want to make a treaty with the Daleks. How well do you think that's gonna go down, mate? Haven't you seen the TARDIS index files? He gives Susan some more drugs and sends her on her way. Nice. Susan makes it back to the city and tells the gang what the Thals have told her about their intentions. Right under a big Dalek eye camera, you dope. The Daleks play along and make Susan write a letter on their behalf, which is hilarious. The Dalek can say fresh vegetables. That's amazing. Back in the cell, the gang stage an argument in order to take out the camera and do some real plotting. They work out that the Daleks use static electricity to power their casings.
A fairground.
Yes, Barbara, a fairground. Can we focus on this for now? Using a well-placed Thal blanket and the old mud to the ice dog technique the Doctor presumably learned at the Academy, they capture and incapacitate a Dalek. They scoop out the little midget inside and shove Ian into the Dalek, not the midget. It's quite an interesting format, these earlier episodes. I don't know why they chose to do it this way. I guess it all does kind of add up to the equivalent of one modern episode because they're only 20 minutes long. But I always thought it'd be interesting to do this kind of thing again with modern Doctor Who, to have one story take place over the course of 3 or 4 episodes. The plan works for a short time, and Ian, in Dalek guise, manages to get them some distance before the jig is up and the chase is on. Will Ian make it out of his Dalek disguise before the real Daleks show up and torch his ass? Jesus Christ. Well, I guess that's the end of Ian. Now we know how he leaves the show. I do love how inventive this show is. It's just really impressive for the time it was made, with the budget that was made, and the limited space and resource that they had, how much they were able to accomplish with it. Despite excessive warning knocks, the Thal still wander blindly into the city, right where the Daleks want them. I mean, who wouldn't when the Daleks have laid out such a nice spread? A bog roll? What is that? The ambush plays out how so many ambushes do and result in the death of many a Thal. The survivors, the Doctor and co, all head back to the Thal camp. I swear to God, if they have a goddamn cave of skulls. He's so good, William Hartnell. That's one of the most fascinating things about the show, is that through most of the performances of the actors who played the Doctor after this, you can still see elements dating back to William Hartnell in their performance. Most of the time. The Thals inform the gang that the Daleks were once humanoid creatures, mutated by the Neutronic War. Ian wants to convince them to drop the pacifism and fight back, but the Doctor suggests they leave. I'm sure we can all assume Ian was able to hold on to that fluid link.
It's down there somewhere. In the city.
You are shitting me. Ian influences the Thal leader to display aggression in the hope that it will encourage them to fight back against the Daleks, and thankfully it works. The Thals agree to help the gang back into the city. Back in the city, the Daleks are trying out the anti-radiation drugs, and it's having a sort of effect. These POV shots are great as well, because obviously they do these in the new show as well, with a bit more computer generated effects, but that's such a good idea to have that. And again, it's it goes back to how creative they were, because not everyone would decide to do that, but it's such an obvious thing once you see it. It's almost as iconic as they are now, having that POV shot. I think every iteration of the Dalek has had it. The Daleks deduce that they've evolved to actually rely on the radiation, and being Daleks and doing what Daleks do, they decide the perfect way to get another bountiful dose of delicious radiation while wiping out those pesky Thals is to set off another neutronic bomb. I mean, if you've got one lying around, it'd be a shame to waste it. Oh, that is a cool shot, look at that. The miniature. Just the Daleks have all these things that just wouldn't be at all feasible for a Dalek to have. Why would a Dalek at any point decide that a tape reader is the best way to receive information? Back with the gang, they've made progress on their journey to the city and stopped to rest at the tranquilly named Lake of Mutations, because you would, wouldn't you? Have some Vimto. It's hot off the fire. Ooh, that's rough. Ooh, that's rough. He got crackened. Such a cool concept by Terry Nation. Like, the monster as well, but also the story. I will always be more interested in a Doctor Who story if it's about a space war rather than history. Depends on the historical episode. Positively reeling from the death of that guy, the party carry on with their journey to the city. Bit of a connection here between these two. Between Barbara and this Aryan Thal. This guy looks like when Shrek becomes human in Shrek 2. Maybe it is him. I'm familiar with his work. The Doctor and Susan sneak into the city to bring down the Daleks' power just by haphazardly smashing shit. Just tearing the joint apart. However, they're quickly surrounded and taken prisoner and brought into the Dalek control room, where the Daleks helpfully inform them of their plan to irradiate the planet. Oh, this is so Nazi. You know what I mean? Back with Ian and the gang, they come across a crevasse that they have to get across, and do so using a rope and a lot of jumping. Everything goes relatively smoothly until a misjudged attempt sends one Thal tumbling over the edge, and Ian with him, clinging on for dear life as he gets pulled by the Thal's weight. What an ordeal! Oh, yeah, now as we move into the final part of the story, things are looking a little grim for old Ian. He just sacrificed himself. That was nice of him. Shrek 2's not so bad. Nope, he's definitely not on the end of this rope. The party press on and make it to the city and sneak their way into the centre. The tension is building more and more, but I found it slightly overshadowed by a text from my girlfriend with an update on Sluggate. She got a text from my girlfriend saying the fucking slugs are back. Basically, there's slugs in her flat. And we thought they were gone, but clearly they're back. Just quite a threatening message to receive. The slugs are back. No. After all this time. Everybody converges on the Dalek control room and chaos ensues. It's a ferocious battle as the Daleks are destroyed, but not before they take some Thals with them. The Daleks' plan is stopped, and the dying Daleks beg the Doctor to repair the system, to which he replies, even if he could, he doesn't want to. Yikes. See, back in this day it wasn't any, do I have the right? It was all, fuck you. I don't know how, I don't wanna. Take this one home for eating. With the war over, they all return to the Thal camp, and the Doctor leaves them with some parting words.
Always search for truth. My truth is in the stars, and yours is here.
That's a good line. Good line, well delivered by old Billy Hartnell. The TARDIS takes off and heads off for its next adventure. While the gang are stood around the console, there is a huge explosion, which sends them flying to the floor. And this is where we leave the Daleks. I love this story. There are a few times in the middle before the pace picks up again for the climax that I think it slows down quite a bit, but I think why that's forgivable and why the episodes still hold up is that they use the time to build up story and character. These episodes do such a great job of setting up the Doctor's worst enemy in such a creepy, chilling way, and you immediately feel through the music, the acting, and the direction that these creatures are something unique and terrifying. Like so many elements of the show that have come from these first stories, it's quite clear to see where so many stereotype bookmarks of the show have come from. And Daleks are Daleks and always will, or at least always should be. But what's interesting about these episodes is that the version of the Daleks we're first introduced to isn't all that recognizable. They seem more human in a weird way, and I'm interested to see, gradually or not, how they become the Daleks that I'm used to. The Daleks have always been one of my favourite parts of the show, and even as a kid when I hadn't seen the legacy that came before, I knew that they were something special. And it's always great to watch this episode and see how a silly little robot with a plunger and an egg whisk became one of the greatest threats and one of the biggest icons in the legacy of Doctor Who. Thank you for watching, see you next time for the Edge of Destruction.